What would you do if the ones you loved most stripped you bare, only to beg for your forgiveness when fortune turned? Eleanor Grayson had given everything to her 3 children, Mark, Lila, and Sophie. Her modest savings, her small home in the suburbs, her time, her heart all poured into their dreams. She worked double shifts at the diner, her hands calloused from years of scrubbing plates, to fund Mark's law school, Lila's art career, and Sophie's endless travels. At 68, she expected little in return, only the warmth of family. But warmth turned cold when they abandoned her, leaving her with nothing but a rented room and a heart heavy with betrayal. It began subtly. Mark stopped calling, too busy with his high-flying cases. Lila, once her confidant, dismissed her mother's visits as inconvenient. Sophie, the youngest, drained Eleanor's savings with promises of repayment that never came. When the bank foreclosed on her house, none of them answered her desperate calls. "You'll figure it out, Mom," Mark had said, his voice clipped, before hanging up. Lila sent a text, "I'm in the middle of a gallery show. Can't help." Sophie didn't even respond. Eleanor sold her wedding ring to pay for a month's rent in a dingy boarding house, her pride swallowed by necessity. Days blurred into months. Eleanor survived on thrift store clothes and expired grocery store bread. She wrote letters to her children, hoping to mend a rift, but they returned unopened. The pain wasn't just the poverty, it was the silence. She'd raised them to chase their dreams, but had she taught them to forget her? One night, alone in her room, she wept, not for the money, but for the love she'd lost. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A letter arrived, its wax seal embossed with a crest she didn't recognize. It was from a law firm in London, informing her of an inheritance from a distant uncle she'd never met, a recluse who'd amassed a fortune in real estate. Eleanor, his only living relative, was now worth $47 million. The news felt like a fever dream. She sat on her creaky bed, clutching the letter, her laughter mingling with tears. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of irony. Enter Margaret, a kind-hearted social worker who'd befriended Eleanor at the boarding house. Margaret, with her warm smile and endless optimism, had been a lifeline, sharing her own meager meals when Eleanor's pantry was bare. When Eleanor confided in her about the inheritance, Margaret urged her to reclaim her life, not just her wealth. "You owe them nothing," Margaret said, her voice firm. "But you owe yourself everything." Those words lit a fire in Eleanor's heart, one she hadn't felt in years. Eleanor moved into a sprawling estate, its marble halls a far cry from her rented room. She didn't flaunt her wealth, but word spread. Suddenly, her children reappeared. Mark sent emails, pleading for a meeting to reconnect. Lila showed up at the estate's gates, tears streaming, claiming she'd been lost without her mother. Sophie posted a public apology on social media, calling Eleanor her hero. Each word dripped with regret, but Eleanor saw it for what it was: greed dressed as remorse. She met them once, in a sterile lawyer's office. They sat across from her, eyes wide with expectation, as if her fortune was their birthright. "We're family," Mark said, his voice cracking. "We made mistakes, but we love you." Eleanor looked at them, her children, now strangers. She thought of the nights she'd gone hungry, the letters they'd ignored, the house they'd let her lose. "You didn't love me when I had nothing," she said, her voice steady. "You don't get to love me now." The will was airtight. Eleanor left them nothing, not a cent, not a keepsake. She donated millions to charities for single mothers and the homeless, causes that mirrored her own struggles. Margaret, the unexpected friend, became her companion, sharing in the quiet joy of a life rebuilt. Eleanor's heart, once broken, found peace in giving to those who'd never ask. Her children's tears fell publicly, their pleas broadcast on talk shows and social media. But Eleanor didn't watch. She stood by her mansion's window, watching the sunset over her new world, knowing she'd chosen herself at last. Yindi.